The chrome and glass lobby of Apex Systems reflected morning light, like a cathedral built to worship success. Victoria Hartwell stepped from the executive elevator at 8:52, flanked by two men in European suits whose laughter echoed off marble walls. Klaus and Heinrich Berlin investors had just signed commitments worth $50 million. The day was going exactly as planned. Jim Mitchell stood near the reception desk, leather portfolio tucked under one arm. The corner showed wear from 11 years of use, a scuff mark from when it had fallen during Rebecca's last hospital visit. He'd carried it to every major deal since. The receptionist had told him to wait, confusion crossing her face when his name didn't appear in the system despite 3 weeks of confirmed meetings. Victoria's Chanel No. 5 preceded her arrival by half a second. Jim stepped forward, extending his right hand in a gesture he'd performed 10,000 times in boardrooms across America. The words came out steady, professional. "Ms. Hartwell, I'm Jim Mitchell. We have a 9 o'clock meeting." Her eyes traveled downward. Levi's jeans worn soft at the knees. Hanes polo shirt in faded blue, the kind sold in 3-packs at Target. Nike running shoes that had seen better days. A Timex watch with a $30 price tag. Her expression shifted like weather-changing clouds rolling across a clear sky. The question emerged cold flat, devoid of the warmth she'd shown her European guests seconds earlier. "Who are you?" Not hello, not how can I help, just that single blade of inquiry sharp enough to draw blood. Jim kept his hand extended, kept his voice level. "Jim Mitchell, we have a 9 a.m. meeting scheduled. The acquisition papers are ready for—" Her gaze made a second pass, slower this time, deliberate. By the time her eyes returned to his face, something fundamental had calcified in her expression. Contempt, yes, but beneath it, something else. Fear wearing the mask of superiority. The interruption came swift. "I'm sorry, I think you're confused." 50 people moved through the lobby, now morning coffee runs and elevator waits, the ordinary choreography of corporate life. Some had already noticed the standoff developing near the reception desk. A young intern, Amy Chen, pulled out her phone. The angle captured everything. Jim's patience held barely. "Ma'am, if you'd just check with your office, I've been coordinating with Robert Harrison, your CFO, for the past 6 months." Victoria turned to Klaus and Heinrich, her voice rising just enough to ensure an audience. "Can you believe this? Someone actually crashed our meeting." Klaus frowned, a vertical line appearing between his eyebrows. "Victoria, perhaps we should verify." She cut him off with a gesture, one manicured hand slicing air. "No, Klaus, watch this. This is exactly what I deal with every day in Silicon Valley. Everyone thinks they can walk in off the street and demand my time." The space between them collapsed. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Jim could see the diamond studs in her ears, each one worth more than most people earned in a year. Her next words came wrapped in silk over steel. "Let me guess. You saw our TechCrunch article about the funding crisis, thought you'd show up, pretend to be important, maybe network your way into something." Jim's jaw tightened. The portfolio under his arms suddenly felt heavier. Rebecca's gift weighted with memory. "I'm not pretending anything. One phone call to your CFO will confirm everything. Robert and I spoke Tuesday to finalize." But Victoria had already moved past, listening, her volume increasing with each syllable playing to the growing crowd. "You know what I see? I see a man who couldn't bother to dress appropriately for a professional environment. Who thinks he can waltz into my building looking like he's about to change oil in his pickup truck?" The intern's phone camera caught it all, the contempt on Victoria's face. Jim's hand still extended now, lowering slowly. The crowd forming a loose semicircle. Something ancient and familiar crawled up Jim's spine. He'd felt this at MIT when a professor asked if he was lost, suggesting the vocational school was across campus. He'd felt it at tech conferences when people handed him their coats assuming he worked security. He'd felt it 100 times in 100 rooms, this casual erasure dressed up as an honest assessment. His voice stayed quiet, almost gentle. "All I'm asking is for you to make one phone call." Victoria's response came sharp as breaking glass. "And all I'm asking is for you to leave before I have you arrested for trespassing." She pivoted toward the security desk, her heels clicking against marble. "Security, can someone help me? This man is disrupting a private business meeting. He's not on any guest list. He claims to be some kind of investor, but—" A laugh bright and cruel. "Just look at him." Tommy Barnes approached with the careful steps of a man who'd seen too much. 62 years old, 3 months from retirement, African-American with silver threading his close-cropped hair. His eyes held something the situation didn't warrant yet apology. The question came respectful, almost kind. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" Victoria's arm extended finger pointing at Jim like an accusation. "Yes, there's a problem. This man is trespassing. Remove him immediately." Tommy turned to Jim, and for a moment their eyes met. Understanding passed between them, the silent language of men who'd been judged by surfaces. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" The answer emerged tired, weighted with futility. "I have a 9 o'clock meeting, confirmed 3 weeks ago. There's been some kind of scheduling." Victoria's interruption landed like a gavel. "He has nothing, I would know. This is my company." Rick Powell, the younger guard, moved in from the right. Ex-military, still carried himself like he was in uniform, one hand near his belt out of habit. His voice held no apology. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us." Jim pulled his arm free from the phantom grip not yet applied. "I can walk myself out." But Victoria wasn't finished. Her voice rose to fill the lobby, ensuring maximum witness to the lesson she was teaching. "No, escort him all the way to the street. I want everyone to see what happens when people try to waste my time." Jim looked at her, then really looked. Past the Armani suit and the diamond earrings and the cruel smile. The woman underneath was drowning. He could see it in the tension around her eyes, the white-knuckle grip on her phone. Her company was dying. He knew the numbers. $12 million monthly burn rate, 47 days until they couldn't make payroll, 31 investors who'd already said no. She was going under, and she didn't even recognize the life preserver standing in front of her. The words came out quiet, meant only for her. "You're making a mistake." Her response dripped contempt. "The only mistake was letting you through the front door." She looked at his hand one final time, still extended, still offering the handshake that would have sealed a $300 million deal. Her gaze traveled across his palm like she was examining something diseased, something untouchable. Then she turned her back. The command came over her shoulder. "Get him out of here, now." Tommy's hand landed gentle on Jim's shoulder, apologetic pressure. "Sir, please, don't make this harder." Jim glanced down at the portfolio. The corner scuff caught lamplight. Rebecca had wrapped this in silver paper for his 36th birthday, back when they still thought they had time. Back when chemotherapy was something that happened to other people. His voice stayed level too calm for a man being publicly humiliated. "I can walk." The revolving door pushed him into California sunshine. Behind him, Victoria's laughter carried through glass, bright and victorious. "Can you believe these scammers get more creative every day?" He heard every word, kept walking. The phone in his pocket vibrated. Emma's name lit the screen, her message optimistic and young. "How'd the signing go?" "Dad Tyler's already planning celebration pizza." Jim stared at the words. His daughter expected success because her father had never taught her to expect anything else. Fingers hovered over the keyboard, searching for truth that wouldn't break her heart. He typed, "Meeting postponed, explain later, love you." The power button held under his thumb until the screen went dark. 30 minutes earlier, the same lobby had felt different. Jim had walked through the revolving door at 8:15, carrying hope like a fragile cargo. 6 months of negotiations, 31 conference calls, 400 emails, all pointing toward this moment. $300 million. 4,500 jobs saved. A company pulled back from the edge. Jenny Wu looked up from the reception desk, professional smile in place, second-generation Chinese-American with perfect diction and kind eyes. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" The response came easy, rehearsed through 3 time zones. "Jim Mitchell, 9 o'clock meeting with Victoria Hartwell." Her fingers moved across the keyboard. The smile faltered, more typing, a frown creasing her forehead. "I'm sorry I don't see you on the schedule. Let me check with Ms. Hartwell's assistant." Jim's briefcase settled on the floor beside his feet. "It's been confirmed for 3 weeks. I have the email chain if—" Jenny was already on the phone, voice dropping to a murmur. Jim caught fragments. "Mitchell, 9 o'clock. Not in the system." While she spoke, Jim's own phone buzzed. Sarah Chen, his COO, never one for patience. "You there yet?" He thumbed a response, waiting in lobby. "Some scheduling mix-up." Her reply came fast. "Typical, these Silicon Valley types can't organize a calendar." You sure about this deal? The question hung there. Was he sure 4,500 jobs, 4,500 families, mortgages and college funds and grocery bills and car payments? People who showed up every day to do good work for bad leadership. His fingers moved 500 jobs, Sarah. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I know, just be careful. I've heard things about Victoria Hartwell. He knew the stories. 8 months of research before agreeing to that first call. High turnover, toxic culture, 3 discrimination lawsuits settled quietly out of court, NDAs stacked like bodies. But he'd also read the employee reviews from regular workers, the ones Victoria never saw. People who loved their jobs, loved their teams, just hated the leadership. Those people deserved better. His response stayed simple. I'll be careful, but those 500 people need someone to fight for them. Sarah's answer made him smile despite the growing knot in his stomach. You're too good for this world, Jim Mitchell. A familiar ache, sharp and old. Rebecca used to say the same thing. The typing stopped on her end. 7 years working together, Sarah had learned when to push and when to let silence speak. Jenny returned to the desk, apologetic and confused. Mr. Mitchell, I've spoken to Ms. Hartwell's office. They don't have you in the system, but I've explained the situation. Would you mind waiting while we sort this out? The chairs near the windows looked comfortable enough. Jim settled in portfolio on his lap, watching Silicon Valley's morning rush through floor-to-ceiling glass. Young people moved past in designer athleisure, carrying overpriced coffee and overnight success stories. He'd been young once, hungry like them, certain that hard work and smart code could solve anything. Then Rebecca got sick, and he learned what problems money couldn't fix. 8 blocks away in a Victoria's corner office, 38 floors above the street, a different conversation was ending badly. Her voice climbed toward breaking. I need 60 more days, just 60. The banker's tone stayed professional, unmoved. Ms. Hartwell, without additional capital injection, we simply cannot extend your credit line. The board has made a decision. Victoria's knuckles whitened around the phone. That's not enough time. The response came flat, final. Then I suggest you move faster. The line died. Victoria threw the phone across her desk hard enough that it skittered over the edge, hit the floor with a crack that sounded expensive. The screen spiderwebbed. Perfect. Just perfect. Her office door opened without knocking. Patricia Hartwell walked in carrying a document folder, 68 years old, with her brother's eyes, the same eyes that watched Victoria from the photo on the credenza. You need to review the Mitchell briefing. He'll be here in 40 minutes. Victoria didn't look up from the shattered phone. I don't have time for some tech wannabe from Ohio. Patricia's voice sharpened. He's not a wannabe. The interruption came razor thin. Patricia, I have Klaus and Heinrich here from Berlin. $50 million investment. That's what matters. Some guy from the Midwest can wait. Patricia set the folder on the desk, 47 pages of research photographs, biography, investment, philosophy. The cover showed a candid shot of Jim Mitchell at a factory floor shaking hands with a line worker. Both men smiling like they shared a secret. Your father would have read this briefing. The words hit like ice water. My father is dead. I run this company now. Patricia studied her niece, seeing Gregory in the stubborn set of her jaw, in the fear she refused to name. She'd watched her brother build this company from nothing. Watched him teach Victoria everything, except the one thing that mattered, how to see people. And now, 3 years after his death, the bill was coming due. The door closed softly. The briefing stayed on the desk unopened. Victoria turned to the window. San Francisco sprawled below, glittering and indifferent. Somewhere in that city, Klaus and Heinrich were probably reconsidering their investment. Somewhere her ex-husband was probably laughing. Somewhere the universe was preparing another lesson she was too proud to learn. The briefing sat there, pages full of answers she didn't know she needed. The video hit the internet at 10:47 a.m. Pacific time. Amy Chen, the intern who'd filmed the encounter, uploaded it to Twitter with shaking hands in a simple caption, "This is what's wrong with corporate America." By 11:15, it had 6 million views. Jim's plane touched down in Columbus at 1:30 Eastern, 3 hours ahead of the collapse that was already underway. He powered on his phone to a digital avalanche, 93 missed calls, 47 voicemails, 216 text messages, all from numbers he recognized and several he didn't. Sarah's message sat at the top, all caps, urgent, call me now. He dialed. She answered on the first ring, words tumbling out before he could speak. Have you seen it, the video? Confusion settled in his chest. What video? Her exhale carried weight. Someone in that lobby recorded everything. Victoria refusing your handshake, calling security, the whole thing. It's everywhere, Jim. 6 million views and climbing. The airport terminal suddenly felt too bright, too loud. Send me the link. His phone buzzed 30 seconds later. The video player loaded in shaky vertical format, filmed from behind Jim's right shoulder. The audio came through crystal clear. Victoria's voice dripping contempt. I don't shake hands with people like you. The camera caught his hands still extended, caught Victoria's face as she looked at him like he carried disease, caught the moment she stepped back, putting physical distance between herself and his untouchable presence. The words came again. I see someone who doesn't belong here. Tommy and Rick appeared in frame. Jim's face stayed neutral, professional, but the camera caught something else. The slight sog in his shoulders. The way his hand lowered slowly, the handshake dying in empty air. The careful dignity of a man who'd been here before, who recognized this species of hurt and knew how to survive it. The comments section scrolled faster than he could read. Thousands of voices, angry and righteous. Who is this monster? This is everything wrong with Silicon Valley. I hope she loses everything. Had boycott Apex trending in 3, 2, 1. But one comment stopped his thumb mid-scroll. That nobody she just humiliated is Jim Mitchell, worth $2.3 billion. Google him. Jim closed the video. The airport moved around him, travelers and luggage, and announcements, the ordinary machinery of American life. 6 million people had just watched him get thrown out of a building like garbage. 6 million strangers now carried pieces of his humiliation in their pockets. Rebecca would have known what to say. She always knew. His phone rang again. Sarah checking. Jim, you still there? The words came out tired. Yeah, I'm here. Sarah's voice carried something between fury and grief. It's worse. 3 of Apex's major clients pulled contracts an hour ago. Stocks down 34% in pre-market trading. The board called an emergency session. Jim found a bench, sat down hard, when, happening now, word is they're discussing removing Victoria as CEO. The airport ceiling stretched overhead, and all steel and glass and engineered light. Somewhere above that, Rebecca was watching. Or maybe not. Maybe death was just silence and absence, no consciousness to carry on, no eternal perspective. Maybe he was alone with this decision, no divine guidance, no ghostly whispers, just a man with a choice to make. Sarah's voice pulled him back. Jim, what are you thinking? He thought about 4,500 people waking up this morning, making coffee, kissing spouses, dropping kids at school. People who had no idea their CEO had just destroyed their futures with 60 seconds of cruelty. I'm thinking about people who did nothing wrong. Silence on the line then. That's not your fault. The truth sat heavy. No, but it might be my responsibility. Sarah knew him too well to argue. You're not seriously considering. The interruption came gentle. I don't know what I'm considering. That's honest. I need time to think. Her sigh carried across the connection. Take all the time you need. But Jim, he waited. The words came soft, certain. Whatever you decide, Rebecca would be proud of you. You know that, right? His throat closed. The airport blurred. When he could speak again, the words scraped out rough. I'll call you tomorrow. The line went dead. Jim sat on that bench for 20 minutes, phone dark in his hands, surrounded by strangers hurrying toward destinations that suddenly seemed impossibly simple. Get on a plane. Fly somewhere. Arrive. He'd have given anything for a problem that concrete. Finally, he stood. His truck waited in long-term parking, faithful and ordinary. The drive home took 40 minutes through Columbus suburbs, past strip malls and chain restaurants, and the landscape of American middle-class life he'd never left behind, despite the billions in his bank account. Home looked exactly as he'd left it. White siding, blue shutters, basketball. Hoops slightly crooked in the driveway because he kept meaning to fix it and never did. Emma's Toyota Camry sat where she'd parked it, the car he'd bought her for her 16th birthday, watching her cry actual tears because it was too much him telling her nothing was too much for her, both of them knowing he was trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled with cars or kiss or anything except the woman who wasn't there. The front door opened before he reached it. Tyler exploded out, all legs and energy and grass-stained knees, 11 years old, and convinced his father could fix anything. Dad, I scored 2 goals today. 2, coach said. I might make varsity next year, and I'm only in 6th grade. Jim dropped to one knee, caught his son in a hug that smelled like sweat and youth and uncomplicated joy. That's amazing, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Tyler pulled back, grinning. I wish you'd been there. The knife twisted familiar and sharp. Another moment missed, another game he'd chosen work over watching. I know, I'm sorry. The meeting ran. Tyler's enthusiasm steamrolled the apology. It's okay, Emma recorded it. You can watch later. I did this fake to the left, and then Emma appeared in the doorway, 16, and carrying her mother's eyes dark and knowing. The words came quiet, heavy. Dad, I saw the video. Tyler kept talking about footwork and angles, oblivious. Jim's world narrowed to his daughter's face, watching recognition. Dawn, watching her understand that something had shifted in the universe she thought she knew. He stood slowly. Emma, her voice cracked across whatever lie he'd been assembling. It's everywhere, Dad. Everyone at school sent it to me. All my friends, teachers, random people I barely know. They all saw that woman. She stopped jaw-working, trying to find words for something that had no adequate language. Jim waited, knowing this moment mattered, knowing how he handled the next 60 seconds would teach her something about dignity or bitterness, about strength or victimhood. The words finally came, trembling with fury. How could she do that to you? How could she look at you like you were nothing, like you were trash? Tyler had gone quiet, picking up on the tension, looking between his sister and father with growing confusion. Jim pulled Emma close, felt her shake against his chest. Hey, look at me. She tilted her face up, tears tracking mascara down her cheeks. The words came steady, certain meant for both his children. That woman doesn't know me. She made a judgment based on what I was wearing. That says everything about her and nothing about me. You understand? Emma's breath hitched, but you're whole meeting the deal. He kept his voice level, teaching the lesson Rebecca would have taught if she were here, is postponed, not canceled. There's a difference. Emma pulled back, studying his face like she was seeing him for the first time. So you're still going to help her after what she did? The question hung between them. Tyler had moved closer now, sensing this was important, even if he didn't understand why. Jim chose his next words carefully. I'm thinking about it. That's honest. I need to consider what's right. Emma's voice rose, 16-year-old righteousness burning bright. What's right? She humiliated you. She called you. She looked at you like... The interruption came gentle. 4,500 people work at that company, Em. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just trying to feed their families, pay their bills, live their lives. Should they lose everything because their CEO made a terrible choice? Understanding flickered across her face, followed by something harder. So you're considering helping her after she treated you like garbage? Jim shook his head. I'm considering helping them. There's a difference, what though? Tyler tugged his father's sleeve, young and uncertain. Dad, what's happening? Before Jim could answer, Emma's question cut through. What would Mom say? The world stopped. Jim looked at his daughter, saw Rebecca in the tilt of her head, in the fierce protectiveness that masked deeper hurt. He pulled out his wallet, old leather worn soft at the edges, and extracted a photo. Rebecca smiled from behind plastic, 34 years old, forever frozen in a moment before cancer and loss and the long shadow of her absence. Behind the photo, tucked safe, an index card in her handwriting. The ink had faded, but the words remained clear. Be kind today. You never know whose worst day you're walking into. He showed it to Emma, to Tyler, let them read the familiar phrase they had heard 1,000 times. Your mom would say what she always said, that how we treat people when they're at their worst shows who we really are. Tyler's voice came small. Is the mean lady at her worst? Jim knelt down, bringing himself level with his youngest. Yeah, buddy, I think she is. Emma's arms crossed, protective and skeptical. She doesn't deserve your help. The truth sat between them. Probably not, but those 4,500 people do. And your mom taught me that doing the right thing and doing the easy thing are almost never the same. Tyler's face scrunched in concentration. Can we watch my goals now and order pizza? Jim stood, ruffled his son's hair. Yeah, let's watch your goals. They ordered 3 large pizzas and gathered in the living room, Tyler's game playing on the big screen. Emma provided commentary. Tyler bounced with each replay, and Jim tried to focus on his son's footwork while his phone buzzed continuously against the coffee table face down, ignored. Rebecca's photo watched from the mantel, smiling over the chaos she would have loved. The kids had her eyes, her laugh, her casual certainty that the world was fundamentally good, despite all evidence to the contrary. At 9 p.m., Tyler fell asleep on the couch mid-sentence, grass-stained and content. Jim carried him upstairs, tucked him into bed, pulled the Star Wars comforter up to his chin. Tyler's eyes opened halfway, sleep heavy. Dad, what, are you a hero? Understanding the question landed unexpected. What? The words came dreamy, disconnected. My teacher said we could do our hero presentation on anyone. I want to do it on you. Jim's throat tightened. Buddy, I'm not a hero. Tyler's hand found his father's small and certain. Mom said so. Before she went away. She told me you were going to do big things, important things. But the most important thing was you'd always be kind. Jim couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Rebecca's voice in their son's mouth reaching across 11 years of absence to remind him who he was supposed to be. Tyler's eyes drifted closed again. I want to tell my class about you, about today, about the mean lady. Is that okay? Jim found his voice somewhere deep. Yeah, that's okay. The words came quieter, fading towards sleep. What are you going to do, Dad? He looked at his son, this perfect synthesis of him and Rebecca, this young soul watching to see what strength looked like when it wasn't wrapped in violence or vengeance. The answer came from somewhere true. I'm going to do what your mom would want me to do. Be kind, even when it's hard. Tyler smiled, already gone. That's why you're my hero. Jim sat on the edge of the bed until Tyler's breathing evened out into sleep. Then he walked downstairs past Emma's closed door where music played softly out to the back porch, where the night was quiet and the stars were bright and Rebecca wasn't there but somehow always was. He pulled out his phone. The screen showed 247 notifications. Media requests, board members, investors, friends, strangers. Everyone wanted a piece of his humiliation, his response, his pain packaged into sound bites and headlines. He ignored all of it and opened the email from Robert Harrison, Apex's CFO, sent 6 hours ago. Mr. Mitchell, I understand what happened this morning. I want you to know that not everyone at this company shares Victoria's perspective. There are 4,500 people here who had nothing to do with what happened in that lobby. Families, good people. Whatever you decide, they didn't deserve this. Jim stared at those words until they blurred. 4,500 families. 4,500 people who'd shown up to work this morning with no idea their CEO was about to destroy everything. People with mortgages and medical bills and kids who needed braces and parents who needed care. People just like he'd been when Rebecca was dying and the hospital bills kept coming and the future looked like a cliff edge in the dark. His phone rang, blocked number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him, hello. The voice came, female, shaking. Mr. Mitchell, this is Margaret Torres. I'm a senior engineer at Apex. I was in the lobby this morning. Jim straightened. Miss Torres. Words tumbled out fast, like she'd been rehearsing. I need to tell you something. I watched her refuse to shake your hand. I watched them escort you out. And I did nothing. I stood there like a coward and did nothing. Silence stretched between them, two strangers connected by shared witness to cruelty. Her voice broke. I should have said something. Should have spoken up. But I was scared. Scared of losing my job. Scared of what she'd do. I have 2 kids, a mortgage. I couldn't risk. Jim's voice came gentle. Miss Torres, you have nothing to apologize for. She kept going like she hadn't heard. I've worked here 11 years. I've been passed over for promotion 3 times. Given to men with less experience. I pitched an innovation that saved the company $2 million and my manager took credit. I filed a complaint and HR told me maybe engineering wasn't the right fit. The story poured out familiar and terrible. But I stayed because I have two kids and no other options. Because I'm good at what I do, even if they don't see it. Because I kept hoping things would get better. Jim closed his eyes, seeing 4,500 Margaret Torreses trapped by mortgages and healthcare and the basic architecture of American life that made leaving impossible. Her question came desperate. Are you really going to walk away? Let us all go under because of what she did? The answer stuck in his throat. Because yes, part of him wanted exactly that. Wanted Victoria to lose everything, wanted her to feel what he'd felt, wanted the universe to deliver. Justice wrapped in bankruptcy and humiliation. But Rebecca's voice whispered from memory. Wanting revenge just means letting someone hurt you twice. He found words, Ms. Torres. I haven't decided anything yet. She started crying, trying to muffle it. We're good people, Mr. Mitchell. We're not her. We're just trying to survive. The line went dead. Jim sat in darkness, holding his phone, feeling the weight of 4,500 lives pressing down like atmosphere. The knock came at 6:47 the next morning. Jim was already awake, had been since 4, sitting in the kitchen with coffee going cold while he stared at nothing. Emma and Tyler still slept upstairs Saturday morning, merciful and quiet. Through the front window, he saw the rental car. Toyota Corolla, beige and anonymous. A figure sat behind the wheel, unmoving for 23 minutes. Jim watched, knowing who it was, knowing what it meant. Finally, movement. The car door opened. Victoria Hartwell stepped out, looking nothing like the woman from the lobby. No Armani suit, no diamond earrings. Jeans and a gray sweater, hair down, face bare. She looked smaller, somehow. Diminished, like someone had let the air out. She walked to his door with the careful steps of someone approaching a cliff edge. Her hand lifted, hesitated. Finally knocked. Jim opened before the second knock could fall. They stood there, doorway distance between them. Morning light creeping across Ohio suburbs. Victoria's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Whatever speech she'd prepared had abandoned her. Mr. Mitchell, I know I have no right to be here. I know you probably want me to leave, but I'm begging for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Then I'll go and never bother you again. Behind him, footsteps on the stairs. Emma appeared, bleary and confused, saw Victoria through the doorway and went rigid. Dad, who is recognition hit like electricity. Are you kidding me? Jim's voice came firm. Emma inside. His daughter's face flushed red. Dad, she. The father voice, the one that meant no argument, inside, now. Emma's glare could have melted steel. She turned and disappeared, the slam of her bedroom door echoing down. Jim stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind him, kept his body between Victoria and his home. You have 5 minutes. Victoria's hands twisted together, diamond ring catching light. I flew here because I had to look you in the eye and tell you I was wrong. The words hung there, inadequate and true. She kept going, voice shaking. I could have called, could have sent a letter, but I needed to stand here on your property and let you see how far I've fallen. Jim said nothing, waited, let silence do its work. Victoria pulled an envelope from her pocket, hands trembling. My father left me a letter. I only read it yesterday, after I saw who you really were, after I understood what I'd done. She held it out. Jim took it, unfolded pages covered in elegant handwriting. Gregory Hartwell's final words to a daughter he'd loved but failed to teach. The letter began, My darling Victoria, if you're reading this, it means I've failed you. Jim read about a man who'd built an empire but forgotten to build character in his heir. About regrets and hopes and a final confession. 15 years ago, Gregory had given an unknown coder named Jim Mitchell $500,000 through a shell company, betting on potential over pedigree, on character over credentials. The truth settled like snowfall. Your father saved my life. That money kept us afloat while Rebecca was dying. I never knew it was him. Victoria's voice barely worked. I know, I read his files last night. Every check he wrote you, every note about the kid with potential. He believed in you when no one else did. Jim looked at her, really looked. Saw his own grief reflected back, different shape but same weight. Loss of a parent, burden of legacy, fear of unworthiness. Why didn't he tell me? The answer came soft. Because he wanted you to succeed on your own merit, not because you felt indebted. Jim folded the letter, handed it back. So what do you want from me? Victoria met his eyes, held them, a chance. One chance to make this right. The question came sharp. For you or for them? She flinched but didn't look away. For them, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But 4,500 people deserve to keep their jobs. They deserve better than to suffer for my mistakes. Jim studied her face, looking for the lie, the angle, the trap. Found only exhaustion in something that might have been shame. If I do this and that's if there are conditions, 5 of them, non-negotiable. Victoria straightened. Anything. He shook his head. Not anything, specific things, things that will cost you. Her jaw set. Tell me. The first condition came level clear. Public apology, on camera, no PR team writing your script. You admit exactly what you did and why it was wrong. No spin, no softening, the truth. She nodded. Done. The second hit harder. You step down as CEO. Immediately, not next quarter. Monday morning, you announce your resignation. Victoria's breath caught, but she held steady. Yes. Third, independent culture audit. Every complaint, every allegation, every person who was passed over or pushed out. All examined by outside investigators with full authority to recommend changes. No interference from you or the board. Her voice stayed firm. Agreed. Fourth, $5 million from your personal accounts, not the companies yours donated to working-class entrepreneur funds. Organizations that help people like I was. People others overlook. She barely hesitated. I'll transfer it today. The fifth condition made her go pale. You personally call every person who filed a complaint against Apex in the last 5 years. 23 people. You listen to their stories, you apologize, and you mean it. Victoria's knees buckled. She caught herself against the porch railing. How many? Jim's voice stayed gentle but unyielding. 23, including Robert Harrison's ex-wife Linda. She filed an HR complaint 4 years ago about pregnancy discrimination. You buried it with a $75,000 NDA. Robert never knew why she really left him. The blood drained from Victoria's face. She sat down hard on the porch steps, designer jeans on ordinary concrete. Oh God. Jim waited while she processed, while the full weight of her legacy pressed down. Finally, she looked up, mascara tracking her cheeks. Yes, I'll do all of it. The door behind them opened. Emma stood there, fury and curiosity warring across her face. Dad, Tyler's awake. He wants to know if we're... She saw Victoria on the steps, broken and small, and something shifted in her expression. Jim's voice came soft. Sophie, come here. His daughter walked over, stood beside him, glaring down at the woman who'd hurt her father. Jim put a hand on Emma's shoulder. Tell Ms. Hartwell what your mother used to say. Emma's jaw worked. Long silence. Then reluctant. Be kind today. You never know whose worst day you're walking into. Jim squeezed his daughter's shoulder. Ms. Hartwell is having her worst day. What would Mom do? Emma looked at her father, at Victoria, at the morning light spreading across their quiet street. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice came steady. Mom would give her a chance. Jim nodded, looked back at Victoria. You have one chance. Fail once, break your word. Once show me the woman from that lobby is who you really are, and I'm gone. Forever. Do you understand? Victoria stood, met his eyes, and for the first time since she'd arrived, something like hope flickered across her face. I understand that you're offering me something I don't deserve, and the only way to honor that is to spend the rest of my life becoming someone who does deserve it. Jim held her gaze, measuring. Your board meets Monday. Have them call my office at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll discuss terms. Victoria walked toward her rental car. At the driver's door, she stopped. Turn back, Mr. Mitchell. He waited, her voice barely carried. Your wife sounds like she was an extraordinary person. Something in Jim's chest loosened. She was. Victoria's next words came careful, sincere. You're honoring her memory. What you're doing right now, choosing grace over revenge. She'd be proud. Jim didn't answer. Couldn't. Just watched as Victoria got in the car, started the engine, drove away toward whatever came next. Tyler appeared beside him, pajamas and bedhead, looking up with eyes that saw too much. Dad, who was that? Jim pulled his son close. Someone who made a mistake, and someone who's trying to fix it. Tyler thought about that. Are you going to help her? The question deserved honesty. What do you think Mom would want me to do? His son considered serious beyond his years. Mom would want you to help the people who need it. The 4,500 people. Jim's throat tightened. Even if it means helping the person who hurt me. Tyler nodded, certain, especially then. That's what heroes do, right? Help people even when it's hard. Jim knelt, wrapped his arms around his youngest child, felt the weight of every decision Rebecca had ever made to be kind when it cost her to be generous, when it hurt to teach their children that strength looked like mercy and power looked like restraint. Tyler's voice came muffled against his father's shoulder. When did you get so smart, buddy? The answer broke him. Mom taught me. Before she left, she said you were going to have to make hard choices. And when you did, I should remember she picked you because you always pick what's right, even when it's not easy. Jim held his son and let the tears come, let the grief and hope and terrible responsibility wash through him, while Ohio morning lights spread across their yard and Rebecca watched from every corner of their lives, still teaching, still loving, still showing them who they were supposed to be. Monday morning arrived with the weight of consequence. The Apex Systems boardroom filled by 850-12 faces arranged around Brazilian walnut Patricia Hartwell at the far end where Gregory's chair used to sit. Victoria joined via video from her Columbus hotel room, face bare and tired, no pretense left to maintain. Richard Sterling called the meeting to order, his voice carrying decades of corporate authority. We're here to discuss the conditions Mr. Mitchell has outlined for proceeding with the acquisition. I've reviewed them with legal counsel. They're comprehensive. A younger board member, Thomas Chen, leaned forward. The public apology language. Our attorneys suggest modifications that would minimize liability exposure. The video screen showed Victoria shaking her head. None, Thomas blinked. I'm sorry. Her voice came steady through the speakers. I agreed to the conditions. I looked Jim Mitchell in the eye and said yes. We honor my word or we die as a company. Those are the options. Patricia's expression showed something like pride. Victoria's right. My brother built this company on integrity. We accept all 5 conditions without modification. Robert Harrison sat silent at the table, having barely slept, financial models spread before him, showing the math of survival. 45 days of cash remaining, burn rate still climbing, 3 more clients, threatening departure. Without Mitchell's deal, Apex would file Chapter 11 by May 1st. Sarah Chen appeared on the second video screen, calling from Mitchell Technologies headquarters in Columbus. Mr. Mitchell has authorized me to clarify expectations. The conditions are non-negotiable, but he wants the board to understand his reasoning. Richard gestured for her to continue. Sarah's eyes held steel beneath professional courtesy. The public apology isn't about humiliating Ms. Hartwell. It's about establishing new cultural standards. Your employees need to see that accountability reaches the top. The stepping down isn't punishment. It's recognition that transformation requires new leadership. The audit isn't investigation for revenge. It's diagnosis for healing. She paused, letting each word land. And the phone calls to complainants aren't performative. They're reparations, real ones, which means Ms. Hartwell needs to hear stories she won't want to hear and sit with discomfort she can't escape. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. What if some of those calls expose us to additional legal liability? Sarah's smile held no warmth. Then you face that liability. Mr. Mitchell isn't interested in protecting you from the consequences of your choices. He's interested in protecting 4,500 employees from yours. The boardroom fell silent. Patricia broke it. All in favor of accepting the conditions as stated. 12 hands rose, not unanimous in enthusiasm, but unified in desperation. Victoria's image on screen remained steady. I have one addition, my own condition. Richard's eyebrow lifted. You want to add something? Her hands came into frame, holding a folder. I want to establish a memorial fund in Rebecca Mitchell's name. $10 million from my personal trust, for families dealing with cancer and job loss simultaneously. Sarah's screen showed her surprise. Ms. Hartwell, that's not required. Victoria's interruption came soft but certain. It's required for me. Jim Mitchell's wife gave him a compass that he's using to navigate this situation with more grace than I deserve. I want to honor that. The vote passed 13-0. Robert finally spoke, his voice carrying a strain. When does integration begin? Sarah consulted notes. Mr. Mitchell's team embeds tomorrow. 3-month due diligence period. Ms. Hartwell steps down effective end of business today. David Park becomes interim CEO. Public apology press conference is scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific. The timeline landed like a countdown to execution. Victoria's screen went dark. She'd ended the call without ceremony or farewell, already moving towards the next impossible thing. The list arrived by an encrypted email at 2 p.m. Eastern. 23 names each with a summary of their complaint, settlement details, current contact information were available. Victoria printed it, despite environmental guilt needing physical pages to mark progress to witness the scope of damage her leadership had caused. She started with the least threatening way to build courage before the calls that would destroy her. Number 1, Marcus Webb, software engineer, filed complaint about age discrimination after being passed over for promotion in favor of someone 15 years younger with half his experience. Settled for $75,000, NDA signed, left company 2 months later. Victoria dialed at 3 p.m., hands shaking enough that she had to redial twice. His voice came cautious. Hello? The words stuck in her throat, then forced themselves free. Mr. Webb, this is Victoria Hartwell. I'm calling to apologize for what happened to you at Apex Systems 4 years ago. Silence stretched long enough that she thought he'd hung up. Then, why now? Why, after all this time? She told him about the lobby, about Jim Mitchell, about the conditions and the transformation, and the terrible recognition that she'd built a company culture on the foundation of casual cruelty. Marcus listened without interrupting his breathing, the only sound confirming he remained on the line. When she finished, his question came sharp. Do you remember what my manager said when I asked why I didn't get the promotion? Victoria checked her notes, found the file notation. He said you weren't culture fit. Marcus's laugh held acid. He said I was too old to understand the new generation of users. Said my ideas were outdated. I had 23 years of experience. 23 years building products that millions of people used, and I was too old. The words hit like stones. I'm 62 now, Ms. Hartwell. 62 and consulting because no tech company will hire me full-time. I lost my career, my identity, my belief that hard work and skill mattered more than youth and appearance. Victoria's eyes closed. I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can say that makes this okay. Silence again. Then you're right. There isn't, but you called. That's more than I expected. The conversation ended after 43 minutes. Victoria made notes, recorded what she'd learned, moved to name number 2. The calls blurred together across 3 days, each one a window into damage she'd caused through action or neglect. Jessica Ramirez fired for taking bereavement leave when her mother died. Chen Li passed over for management because his accent was too strong. Patricia Morrison sexually harassed by her supervisor, while Victoria ignored 3 formal complaints. On the evening of the 3rd day, Victoria reached number 17. The name made her stomach clench. Linda Harrison, Robert's ex-wife. The complaint she'd buried deepest paid the most to silence. The phone rang 4 times. Victoria almost hoped it would go to voicemail, granting temporary reprieve. Then the line connected. Linda's voice came wary. Hello, Victoria forced words through a throat that wanted to close. Mrs. Harrison, this is Victoria Hartwell. I'm calling to apologize for what Apex Systems did to you 4 years ago. The sharp intake of breath on the other end carried recognition and anger in equal measure. I know who you are. Time stretched between them, measured in heartbeats and regret. Victoria pushed forward because stopping meant failing. I'm calling because I need to apologize. Need to hear what my decisions cost you. I read the file, but I need to hear it from you. Linda's laugh was brittle glass breaking. You want me to tell you about losing my daughter so you can feel better about yourself? The accusation landed true. No, I want to hear it so I understand what I did. So I can't hide from it anymore. Silence crackled with electricity. Then Linda began talking, her voice flat with the affect of someone who'd told this story to therapists and lawyers, but never to the person responsible. I was 6 months pregnant, working 60-hour weeks because your culture demanded it. I asked my manager for reduced hours. He laughed. Told me Apex wasn't a place for people who couldn't handle pressure. Victoria's hand pressed against her mouth, trying to contain sounds that wanted to escape. Linda continued relentless. I started bleeding at work. Called Robert, but he was in a meeting with you. His assistant said it couldn't be interrupted. So I drove myself to the emergency room, bleeding through my clothes, terrified and alone. The story unfolded in surgical detail. The hospital, the doctors, the quiet room where they explained that sometimes these things just happen, medical euphemism for loss without explanation. The daughter who would never be born, never named except in grief. Linda's voice finally broke. We were going to call her Emma. Robert picked the name, said it meant whole or universal. He wanted her to feel complete. Victoria's tears fell unchecked, silent acknowledgement that crying was inadequate penance. Linda, there are no words. The other woman's response came sharp. You're right, there aren't. But I need you to understand something. When I came back to work 2 weeks later, you called me into your office. You said I seemed distracted and not committed to excellence. You suggested I might need to evaluate my priorities. The memory surfaced vague and damning. Victoria remembered the meeting, remembered thinking Linda looked tired, remembered feeling annoyed that personal issues were affecting work performance. She'd been a monster, casual and efficient in her cruelty. Linda wasn't finished. I filed the complaint 3 weeks later. Hostile work environment, pregnancy discrimination, retaliation. Your lawyers offered me money in silence. I took it because I had medical bills and a marriage falling apart and no energy left to fight. Her voice turned to steel. But I want you to know what that money cost. It cost my marriage. Robert couldn't understand why I left him. I couldn't tell him because of the NDA. He thought I blamed him for not being there, and I did, but I couldn't explain that I blamed him for choosing you and your company over our daughter. Victoria's words came out broken. He didn't know. He never knew what happened. Linda's sharp breath suggested surprise. What? The explanation spilled out about Jim Mitchell's conditions, about the phone calls, about Robert discovering the file just days ago, about the truth finally surfacing after 4 years of burial. Silence stretched long enough that Victoria checked if the call had dropped. Then Linda's voice came quieter, uncertain. Robert knows now. Victoria's confirmation emerged barely audible. Yes, he's devastated. He's been looking for you. The sound on the other end might have been crying or laughing or some hybrid of both. I've been in Seattle for 3 years. Started over. Different name, different life. Couldn't stand being in the same city where Emma died. Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. Would you be willing to talk to him? He's in the next office. He asked me to tell you he's sorry, that he chose wrong, that he'd give anything to go back and answer your call. The silence became unbearable. Finally, put him on. Victoria's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. She walked 15 steps to Robert's office, knocked once, opened the door. He looked up from spreadsheets, face haggard from sleepless nights. Her voice came out, whisper thin. She wants to talk to you. Robert's chair crashed backward as he stood. Victoria handed him the phone and left, closing the door on a conversation that belonged to them alone. She walked back to her own temporary office, sat in darkness, and understood with absolute clarity that some damage went so deep that apology was inadequate. The only meaningful response was transformation so complete it became a different person offering it. An hour later, Robert appeared in her doorway. His face was wet, eyes red, but something had shifted in his expression. Not happiness exactly, but the end of not knowing, which was its own species of mercy. His voice came rough from crying, "Thank you for making me find the file, for making her tell me, for giving me the chance to finally understand." Victoria could barely meet his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Robert, for all of it, for creating a culture where this could happen, for burying it instead of fixing it." He nodded, still processing Linda's coming back. To San Francisco, not for me, she made that clear. For closure. To see the place where it happened and decide if she can forgive it. Forgive me. The possibility hung between them, fragile and tentative. Robert's next words came careful. She asked about the memorial fund, the one you're setting up for Rebecca Mitchell. She wants to know if it could include something for Emma, some way to make her matter beyond just being gone. Victoria's throat closed. When she could speak, the words emerged certain, yes, absolutely yes. The Rebecca Mitchell and Emma Harrison Memorial Fund for families facing loss and fear simultaneously. Robert's hand found the doorframe for support. That would mean everything to Linda, to me. He left. Victoria sat alone with her list of names, 6 more calls remaining, each one another window into the wreckage of her leadership. But for the first time since the lobby incident, she felt something other than shame. Purpose, maybe, or simply the determination to face what she'd done without flinching. Shannon. Friday afternoon arrived relentless and bright. The press conference was scheduled for 3 p.m. in Apex's main auditorium capacity. 200 requests for credentials topping 500. CNN, Fox Business, TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, every major outlet wanting their piece of the scandal and whatever came next. Victoria stood in the green room, ironic name for a space that felt like a cell, wearing the gray sweater and jeans from Ohio, her deliberate uniform of humility. Patricia sat beside her, offering silent support, while Sarah Chen reviewed logistics through an earpiece connected to the production team. The events coordinator knocked at 2:45, Ms. Hartwell, 5 minutes. Victoria's hands twisted together. I can't do this. Patricia's response came gentle but firm. Yes, you can, because you must. The walk to the auditorium took 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Cameras swiveled to track her entrance, journalists leaning forward with predatory attention, flash photography creating artificial lightning. The podium waited center stage, microphones clustered like metal flowers, the Apex logo behind her soon to be replaced by Mitchell Technologies branding. The end of one era, the beginning of another. Victoria's hands gripped wood veneer knuckles white with pressure. She'd written no speech, brought no notes, just carried the weight of truth that needed speaking. Her voice started quiet, forcing the room to lean in. 4 days ago, I stood in the lobby downstairs and refused to shake a man's hand. I looked at Jim Mitchell, assessed his jeans and polo shirt and comfortable shoes, and decided in 3 seconds that he wasn't worth my time or respect. The room stayed silent except for camera shutters clicking like mechanical insects. She forced herself to continue. I called security, had him removed from the building, humiliated him in front of 50 witnesses while someone recorded the entire interaction. That video has now been viewed by over 20 million people worldwide. Her eyes found individual faces in the crowd, holding contact, refusing to hide. I'm not here to make excuses. There are none. I didn't fail to recognize a billionaire. I failed to recognize a human being. That's worse. A reporter in the third row raised his hand. Victoria shook her head. No questions yet. You need to hear the rest. She told them about the culture she'd built, about the complaints buried and the people dismissed, about the NDAs and settlements, and systemic failure to see employees as anything beyond labor units. About Linda Harrison and Emma, the daughter who died while her father sat in a meeting Victoria deemed too important to interrupt. The room shifted, discomfort spreading like contagion. Several journalists had stopped taking notes, just listening, cameras forgotten. Victoria pulled her father's letter from her pocket, the paper worn from repeated handling. My father wrote me this before he died. He predicted I would do exactly what I did. Predicted I would become the worst version of him instead of the best. He was right. She read the letter in full, her voice breaking on the words about Gregory's regret and hope, about seeing people and choosing grace, about building something that mattered beyond quarterly earnings. When she finished, the silence held weight. Her hands returned to the podium, steadying herself for what came next. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO of Apex Systems. Robert Harrison will serve as interim CEO during the acquisition process. I'm donating $5 million from personal accounts to working-class entrepreneur funds. An additional $10 million will establish the Rebecca Mitchell and Emma Harrison Memorial Fund for families facing cancer and job loss. Murmurs rippled through the press corps. Victoria's voice strengthened. I've spent the past 4 days calling 23 people who filed complaints against Apex over the last 5 years. People I ignored or dismissed or paid to be silent. I've heard their stories, really heard them, and I want to be clear about something. She leaned forward, making sure every camera caught the next words. I'm not apologizing because I got caught. I'm apologizing because I was wrong. Would have been wrong even if there'd been no video, no public humiliation, no consequences. The wrongness existed independent of exposure. A journalist called out, "Some say this is just damage control. How do we know you mean it?" Victoria met his eyes. "You don't. You'll have to watch what I do next. Watch if my actions match these words 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. That's the only proof that matters." Another voice from the crowd, "Will you remain on the board?" Patricia stood, moving to the podium. "I'm Patricia Hartwell, board member, and Gregory Hartwell's sister. Victoria will remain on the board in advisory capacity during transition, then step down completely. She won't have operational control or voting authority." The questions came faster now, journalists sensing the shape of the story, hunting for angles and contradictions. Victoria answered each one with brutal honesty, refusing to soften or spin, letting the full weight of her failure sit exposed under fluorescent lighting and camera scrutiny. After 40 minutes, Sarah Chen stepped forward. Final question. A young woman in the back row stood, voice nervous but determined. "Ms. Hartwell, what do you want people to remember about this moment?" The question caught Victoria unprepared. She'd expected gotchas and accusations, not genuine inquiry. Her answer came from somewhere unscripted. "I want people to remember that failure doesn't have to be final. That transformation is possible if you're willing to do the work. That grace exists even when we don't deserve it, offered by people who have every right to withhold it." She paused, finding words for something she'd only started to understand. "Most of all, I want people to remember Rebecca Mitchell, a woman I never met but whose wisdom is saving me now. She taught her husband that kindness isn't weakness, that how you treat people when you think they're nobody reveals exactly who you are, that being good requires daily choice, especially when it costs you." The conference ended. Victoria walked off stage to mixed reaction, some applause, some silence, some visible skepticism. She'd expected nothing different. In the green room, Patricia waited with Sarah Chen and Robert Harrison. Their faces showed cautious approval. Sarah spoke first. That was good, honest. "Mr. Mitchell will be pleased." Victoria's exhaustion hit like gravity, doubling. "What happens now?" Robert's response came gentle. "Now we wait. See if Jim Mitchell believes you meant what you said." In Columbus, Jim watched the press conference from his home office while Tyler did homework at the kitchen table and Emma practiced driving with Sarah Chen in the driveway. The video played on his laptop, Victoria's face filling the screen, her voice carrying through speakers that suddenly seemed inadequate for the weight of what she was saying. When it ended, he sat in silence for long minutes. His phone rang, Sarah calling from the driveway. "Did you watch it?" The answer came quiet. "Yeah." Her voice carried careful neutrality. "What do you think Jim thought about the woman in that video? Raw and exposed, refusing to hide behind corporate language or legal protection. Thought about the contrast to the woman who'd looked at his hand like it carried disease. Words formed slowly. I think she meant it. Today, at least. Question is whether she'll still mean it in 6 months when nobody's watching." Sarah's response held the pragmatism he valued. "That's pretty cynical." He smiled despite himself. "That's pretty realistic." Footsteps on the stairs announced Emma's return, face flushed from driving practice. "Dad, Sarah says I'm ready to try the highway. Can we go this weekend?" Jim looked at his daughter, 16 years old and eager for independence, carrying Rebecca's confidence without having known its source. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can try the highway." Emma bounded back downstairs, energy and youth in the casual certainty that good things would keep happening because they always had. Jim envied her that innocence while working to preserve it. Sarah's voice pulled him back. "So, what's the verdict? Do we move forward with the deal?" The question deserved thought. Jim opened his desk drawer, found the photo of Rebecca he kept there, studied her face for wisdom that no longer came in words, but in feeling, in the sense of what she would have wanted. His answer emerged certain: we move forward, but we watch carefully. If Victoria backslides, if she breaks any of those conditions, we pull out immediately. Sarah's approval came through clearly. "I'll have legals draw up the final terms. Due diligence starts Monday." The call ended. Jim sat with Rebecca's photo thumb tracing the edge. "I hope I'm doing this right, babe. Hope I'm not being naive." The photo offered no answer, just that smile that had carried him through 20 years of decisions, large and small. Tyler appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. Dad, I need help with pre-algebra. The word problems don't make sense. Jim slipped the photo back in the drawer, followed his son to the kitchen table where math homework waited. Let's see what we're working with. The problem involved calculating rates and distances, trains leaving stations at different times, the familiar architecture of American education. Jim talked through the logic while Tyler nodded, understanding blooming across his face. Ordinary moments. These were what Rebecca had fought to preserve during those final months, not the big gestures or dramatic declarations, but the simple machinery of family continuing. Homework help and driving practice and dinner planning and all the small acts that added up to lives worth living. His phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Mr. Mitchell, this is Victoria. I know you watched the press conference. I'm not asking for feedback or validation. I just want you to know I meant every word. I'll prove it through actions, not promises. Thank you for the chance. Jim stared at the message. Part of him wanted to ignore it to maintain professional distance, to keep Victoria in the category of people he'd help but didn't need to engage with personally. But Rebecca's voice whispered in memory, kindness doesn't end at the transaction. It continues in how you treat people after. He typed back, actions matter more than words. Show me. Show your employees. Show yourself. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then I will. Every day for the rest of my life, I will. Jim set the phone down, returned attention to Tyler's homework, let the complexity of redemption and transformation exist in the background, while basic arithmetic demanded focus in the foreground. The integration began on a Monday morning in early April, 3 weeks after the press conference. Sarah Chen arrived in San Francisco with a team of 15 accountants, operations specialists, culture consultants, HR professionals ready to embed at Apex and begin the surgical process of merger. Robert Harrison met them in the lobby, now featuring a temporary sign announcing the acquisition. Mitchell Technologies logo displayed beside Apex's soon-to-be retired branding. The bronze plaque wouldn't be installed until the one-year anniversary, but everyone knew its location, the exact spot where everything changed. Sarah's handshake with Robert carried professional warmth. Good to meet you in person finally, ready to get started. His smile showed exhaustion and hope in equal measure. As ready as we'll ever be, Conference Room 3 is set up for your team. On the first week consisted of meetings and data gathering. Sarah's team moving through Apex like archaeologists at a dig site, uncovering layers of dysfunction and occasional beauty. The financials were worse than projected, burn rate having accelerated during the crisis. But the employee talent was better, people who'd stayed despite toxic leadership because they believed in the work itself. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, the organizational psychologist Jim had hired specifically for this project, set up shop in a small office and began conducting confidential interviews. Her methodology was simple: listen without judgment, take copious notes, identify patterns that no single person could see, but that emerged clear in aggregate. By Friday of week 1, she had interviews with 63 employees. The stories formed a mosaic of systemic failure. Margaret Torres, senior engineer, spoke about being passed over repeatedly. I pitched the cloud migration strategy that saved us millions. My manager presented it as his idea. When I objected, HR told me I wasn't being a team player. Jennifer Wu, recently rehired, described the harassment that led to her firing. My manager cornered me in the server room, told me I'd go far if I was friendly. When I reported him, I was fired for performance issues 3 weeks later. The performance review was dated after the complaint, but submitted as evidence it had been planned. Tommy Barnes, the security guard, shared perspective from the ground. I watched executives treat cleaning staff like furniture, walked past without acknowledgement, talked over them, acted like they didn't exist. Made me ashamed to wear this uniform sometimes. Helen compiled her findings into a preliminary report that landed on Sarah's desk Thursday of week 2. The executive summary pulled no punches. Apex Systems exhibits classic symptoms of toxic leadership cascading through organizational culture. Employees report fear-based management, arbitrary decision-making, favoritism based on proximity to power, and systematic dismissal of complaints. The good news: the workforce itself is talented, dedicated, and eager for change. The bad news: trust is shattered. Rebuilding will require consistent demonstration of new values over minimum 12 to 18 months. Sarah forwarded the report to Jim with a single sentence: This is worse than we thought and better than we feared. His response came within an hour. Fix it. Take whatever time it needs. Zero compromises on culture. The changes began immediately. Sarah worked with Robert to implement new policies, anonymous complaint, hotline managed by external firm, mandatory bias training for all management promotion decisions, reviewed by committee rather than individual managers, exit interviews conducted by third party with findings published quarterly. The transformation generated resistance from middle management people who'd thrived under the old system and saw new accountability as threat. 3 senior managers resigned within a month. Sarah let them go without counteroffers, sending a clear message about which direction the company was heading. Meanwhile, Victoria kept her distance, having relocated to Atlanta for a consulting role with another company facing culture crisis. She sent weekly updates to Jim through official channels, detailing the work she was doing, the lessons she was learning, the ways she was trying to become someone different. Jim read these reports with careful attention, looking for signs of performance versus genuine change. The distinction mattered deeply. Performance was temporary, a costume worn until crisis passed. Change was cellular transformation that lasted when pressure released. 2 months into integration, an envelope arrived at Jim's Columbus office. Inside, a letter written in careful script on plain paper. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Marcus Webb, the first person on Victoria's apology list. I wanted you to know that 3 weeks after our phone call, Victoria called again. Not because she had to, she'd fulfilled her obligation, but because she wanted to tell me about a consulting opportunity at the Atlanta company she's working with. They needed a senior architect. She recommended me, specifically told them about my 23 years of experience, vouched for my abilities. I got the job. I start next month. I'm not saying this makes everything okay. It doesn't. But it suggests maybe she meant what she said about transformation. Maybe Grace really can change people. Thank you for giving her the chance to prove it. And thank you for being the kind of man who sees past surfaces. Marcus Webb. Jim read the letter 3 times, then filed it carefully in the folder labeled Apex Integration Personal Correspondence. Evidence accumulating slowly that redemption might be real. The anonymous donation hit Apex's accounts on a Wednesday in late May, 3 months after the lobby incident. $10 million wire transfer from an untraceable offshore account, memo line reading, for the employees, from someone who remembers what it's like to be afraid. Robert Harrison called Sarah Chen within minutes of discovery. We just received $10 million from an unknown source. The bank says it's clean, properly documented, but the origination is buried under shell companies. Sarah's confusion matched his. Jim didn't mention any additional funding. They called him together, conference line connecting Columbus to San Francisco. Jim's response came genuine. It wasn't me. I'm committed to the $300 million acquisition. This is someone else. Robert's frustration mounted. But who has $10 million and wants to help us anonymously? Sarah's analytical mind worked the problem. Someone with connection to Apex or Victoria. Someone who believes in second chances but doesn't want credit. Someone wealthy enough that $10 million represents meaningful but not catastrophic donation. The mystery deepened over subsequent days. Legal traced the money backward through 3 banks, 2 countries, ultimately hitting a wall at a Cayman Islands account with privacy protections that would take years to penetrate. Patricia Hartwell, when consulted, claimed ignorance. I'd tell you if it was me. This is someone else entirely. Victoria, reached in Atlanta, expressed equal confusion. I don't know anyone who'd do this except Jim, and he says it wasn't him. Maybe someone from Dad's old network. The money sat in escrow while they investigated policy preventing them from spending funds of unknown origin despite desperate need. The 45 days of cash had become 32, burn rate still problematic despite cost cutting. Jim authorized Sarah to proceed with acquisition acceleration. We can't wait for the mystery to solve. Move up our timeline. Get them stable. The legal work intensified, documents flowing between Columbus and San Francisco, SEC, filings, prepared, shareholder communications drafted. The business of merger advanced with bureaucratic momentum, regardless of unanswered questions. On a Thursday evening in early June, Richard Sterling called Jim's personal cell. The board chairman's voice carried unusual hesitation. Mr. Mitchell, I need to tell you something about the anonymous donation. Jim settled into his desk chair and, you know who it was? Silence stretched then. It was me. through structures my son set up before he died. I need to explain why. The story emerged in fragments. Daniel Sterling, Richard's son, brilliant and sensitive and crushed by workplace stress. A boss who'd demanded 80-hour weeks, who'd called him weak when he asked for reasonable hours, who'd valued productivity over humanity until Daniel couldn't take the pressure anymore. Richard's voice stayed level through long practice or necessity. My son texted me the day he died, said he needed to talk. I was in a board meeting, told him I'd call back after. He jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge 2 hours later. By the time I called back, police were pulling his body from the water. Jim's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. The chairman continued. When I saw Victoria's press conference, saw her talking about Linda Harrison and Emma, I understood something. We'd had complaints about Daniel's boss. Multiple employees saying the same things. We settled them, quietly kept the manager because he hid his numbers. Profits over people. Just like Victoria. Just like me. His voice finally broke. The $10 million was from Daniel's life insurance. Money I got because my son died. I wanted it to help prevent other sons from dying, other families from breaking. But I couldn't take credit. Couldn't make it about me when I was part of the problem. Jim found words carefully. Thank you for telling me, for trusting me with Daniel's story. Richard's control returned. I'm telling you because you deserve to know, and because I want to fund something specific. A mental health program through the Rebecca Mitchell Foundation. For young people dealing with workplace stress. Keep my son's name attached so he matters beyond just being gone. The request landed heavy and right. The Rebecca Mitchell and Daniel Sterling Workplace Wellness Initiative. We'll build it properly. Make it something that saves lives. The call ended. Jim sat with new understanding that trauma and loss connected in unexpected ways, that Victoria's transformation had rippled outward to touch people she'd never directly harmed, that grace offered freely multiplied beyond original intention. His phone buzzed. Emma texting from college visit at Stanford. Dad, I love it here. I think this is where I want to go, where I want to study how to build companies that value people, like you taught me. Jim's throat closed. His daughter wanted to spend her life making sure nobody else experienced what he'd experienced, what Linda had experienced, what Daniel Sterling had experienced. Rebecca's philosophy spreading through generations carried by children who'd never known her but inherited her compass. He typed back, your mom would be so proud of you. I'm proud of you. Apply early decision if this is what you want. 3 dots appeared. Will you come with me to visit again before I apply? The answer came immediate. Wouldn't miss it for anything. Tyler appeared in the doorway, soccer ball under one arm. Dad, can we go practice? Big game tomorrow, and I need help with corner kicks. Jim stood following his son toward the backyard, leaving work behind for the immediate demands of fatherhood. Let's see what you're working with. They spent an hour in fading light, Tyler driving balls toward the net Jim had installed 3 years ago, both of them pretending Rebecca wasn't missing from the sidelines, both knowing she watched from somewhere beyond vision, but within memory. As darkness fell and they headed inside, Tyler's voice came thoughtful. Dad, the lady from the video, Victoria, is she getting better? The question deserved honesty. I think so, buddy. I hope so. But only time will tell. Tyler nodded, satisfied with the ambiguity. Mom would say to keep giving her chances as long as she keeps trying. Jim's hand found his son's shoulder. Yeah, that's exactly what Mom would say. 6 months crawled past like a patient rebuilding itself cell by cell. The integration of Apex systems into Mitchell Technologies moved forward with surgical precision, every metric tracked, every promise kept. Robert Harrison proved himself in ways Victoria never had, listening more than talking, asking questions, instead of issuing commands, treating complaints like data points worth analyzing rather than threats to be buried. Sarah Chen flew to San Francisco twice monthly, her reports landing on Jim's desk with increasing optimism. Employee satisfaction climbed from 34% to 71% in the first quarter alone. Turnover dropped to single digits. The anonymous hotline she'd installed received 47 complaints in the first week. Each one investigated, none dismissed, several resulting in terminations that should have happened years earlier. Margaret Torres got her promotion to senior engineering manager in month 2. Jennifer Wu, the former sales star, who'd been fired for reporting harassment, returned as VP of sales after Victoria personally called to apologize. and Jim's team verified every word of her story. Tommy Barnes received a retirement bonus that made his wife cry, and a plaque in the lobby naming the security desk after him. Recognition 40 years overdue. Victoria attended therapy 3 times weekly in Atlanta, where she'd relocated to consult with another tech company facing cultural collapse. Her bank account showed the $5 million transfer to working-class entrepreneur funds, the $10 million to the Rebecca Mitchell Memorial Foundation, and a lifestyle that had contracted from penthouse to studio apartment, from Mercedes to used Honda, from designer labels to Target basics. The 23 phone calls took her 6 weeks to complete. Each one minimum 30 minutes, no script, no lawyer present, just Victoria and the voices of people she'd harmed through action or negligence, or the simple failure to see them as human. Call 17 broke her completely. Linda Harrison answered on the third ring, voice cautious and cold. Victoria's throat felt lined with glass. "Mrs. Harrison, this is Victoria Hartwell. I'm calling to apologize for what Apex Systems did to you 4 years ago." Silence stretched then. "Do you even remember what you did?" The file sat open on Victoria's lap, words that had become scars on her conscience. "You asked for reduced hours during your pregnancy. You were denied. You filed a complaint. We settled with an ending. I approved the termination without investigating your manager's harassment." Linda's voice turned to ice. "You left out the part where I lost my baby." Victoria's eyes closed. "I know. I read the medical records. I'm so sorry." The story poured out, each word a blade. "I was bleeding in the bathroom at work. I texted Robert, but he was in a meeting with you. A meeting that couldn't be interrupted. I drove myself to the hospital. They couldn't save her. It was a girl. We were going to name her Emma." Victoria pressed her palm against her mouth, trying to contain sounds that wanted to escape. Linda wasn't finished. "When I came back to work 2 weeks later, you told me I seemed distracted and not committed to excellence. I wasn't grieving my daughter correctly according to you, wasn't getting over it fast enough. So I filed the complaint about the hostile environment, about my manager, about the culture that valued productivity over humanity." The words came between sobs Victoria couldn't suppress. "Linda, there's nothing I can say that makes this okay." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "You're right, there isn't, but you called. That's more than I expected." Victoria forced herself to ask the question that terrified her. "What can I do?" The answer came swift. "Tell Robert. He deserves to know why I really left. Why I couldn't look at him anymore without seeing the company that killed our daughter." 2 hours later, Victoria stood outside Robert Harrison's office in San Francisco, having flown back on a red-eye. Her hand shook against the door before knocking. Robert looked up from spreadsheets, surprise crossing his features. "Victoria, I thought you were in Atlanta." She stepped inside, closed the door. "I just spoke to Linda." The color drained from his face. He stood slowly, papers forgotten. When her voice barely functioned this morning, as part of the apology calls. "Robert, there's something you need to know about why she left you." The truth spilled out Linda's story in Victoria's mouth, each word harder than the last. Robert listened without moving, without breathing, his face aging years in minutes. When she finished, silence filled the room like smoke. Robert's voice came out broken. "Emma, we were going to name her Emma." Victoria nodded, tears tracking her face. "Linda wants you to know. She said you deserve the truth." He sat down hard, hands covering his face. The sounds that emerged were raw in ancient grief that had been waiting 4 years to be named and claimed. Victoria backed toward the door. "I'll go. I needed you to know." His voice stopped her. "Wait." She turned. Robert's face was wet, devastated, but his eyes held something fierce. "Thank you for telling me, for giving me the chance to know." Victoria left him there, grief and understanding finally meeting after years of separation. In the elevator descending 38 floors, she understood with absolute clarity that some damage couldn't be repaired, only witnessed and mourned. The email arrived in Jim's inbox on a Tuesday in early October, 10 months after the lobby incident. The subject line read simple and direct, "Memorial Proposal." He opened it, found Victoria's carefully chosen words, "Mr. Mitchell, the 1-year anniversary of the incident approaches in 5 months. I want to do something permanent, something that ensures what happened to you never happens to anyone else at Apex. I'm proposing a bronze plaque in the lobby marking the exact spot where I refused your handshake, engraved with your wife Rebecca's words. I've already commissioned it from my personal funds, but I won't install it without your permission. This isn't for publicity. The media won't be invited. This is for our employees, for everyone who walks through those doors, so they remember what we almost became. If you say no, I'll respect that, but I hope you'll consider saying yes. Attached was a draft of the proposed text, simple and devastating in its honesty. Jim read it 3 times, feeling Rebecca's presence in the words and the philosophy that had outlived her body by more than a decade. He forwarded the email to Emma with a single question. What do you think? Her response came 40 minutes later. I think Mom would love this. But Dad, you should ask for one thing. He called her, heard her voice bright with something between mischief and wisdom. Make Victoria ask me for help with the wording. Make her reach out to your daughter, the one who hated her. Make her earn it. Jim smiled into the phone. When did you get so smart? Emma's laugh carried her mother's music. I had good teachers. 3 days later, Emma's phone rang. Unknown California number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her, hello. Victoria's voice came tentative, respectful. Emma, this is Victoria Hartwell. Your father gave me your number. I'm calling to ask if you'd be willing to help me with the memorial plaque wording. I know you have every reason to say no, but I'm hoping. Emma cut her off, surprising herself. Send me what you have. I'll look at it. They worked together over 3 weeks, emails and phone calls, Victoria deferring to Emma's judgment about what Rebecca would have wanted, how the words should flow, what mattered most. Slowly, grudgingly, Emma began to see past the monster from the video to the woman trying desperately to become someone better. The final text emerged collaborative and true. This plaque marks the spot where on March 15th, a grave injustice occurred. A man was judged by his appearance, not his character. He was denied basic human dignity because he wore jeans instead of a suit. That man, Jim Mitchell, responded not with revenge, but with grace. He saved this company and its 4,500 employees not because we deserved it, but because he believed we could become better. This plaque stands as permanent reminder. Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect. Dignity is not negotiable. Kindness is not optional. In honor of Jim Mitchell and in memory of Rebecca Mitchell, whose legacy of love continues to change lives, be kind today. You never know whose worst day you're walking into. Rebecca Mitchell, 1978-2014. Jim approved it with one condition. I want to be there when it's unveiled, with my kids. Victoria's response came immediate, yes, thank you, and Jim, thank you for letting Emma help. She taught me more about grace in 3 weeks than I learned in 42 years. Patricia Hartwell appeared at Jim's Columbus office 2 weeks before the scheduled memorial unveiling, having flown in unannounced. His assistant showed her into the conference room where Jim sat reviewing quarterly reports. She placed an envelope on the table between them, her brother's handwriting on the front, to be opened only by Jim Mitchell 1 year after Victoria's redemption attempt. Jim's hand hovered over it. How long have you had this? Patricia settled into a chair. Gregory gave it to me 3 days before he died. Specific instructions. If Victoria ever failed you in the way he feared she would, and if she tried to make amends, you were to receive this exactly 1 year later. The envelope opened under his fingers, releasing pages covered in Gregory's elegant script. The letter began, Jim, if you're reading this, it means 2 things. I'm dead, and my daughter did something terrible to you before giving you a chance to fix it. Jim read about a man who'd understood his own daughter better than she understood herself, who'd predicted the pattern of her failure with painful accuracy. About the guilt Gregory carried for teaching Victoria strength without kindness, power without compassion, success without soul. Then the revelation that stopped Jim's breath. I'm leaving $50 million to the Rebecca Mitchell Foundation to be released on the memorial's unveiling. Not as payment, as gratitude. From one man who learned to see people to another who never forgot how. There's someone else you should know about. 30 years ago, a janitor at my building saved my life. Heart attack in the parking garage at 2 a.m. His name was James Morrison. He performed CPR, called 911, stayed with me until the ambulance arrived. I'd walked past him for years without seeing him. He was invisible to me until he saved me. I tried to thank him, offered money. He refused, said he didn't do it for reward. That broke me. Made me see what I'd become. I changed after that gym. Built Apex on different principles. Tried to help people others overlooked. People like you. But I failed with Victoria. She learned the actions without understanding the heart. If you're reading this, you've done what I couldn't taught her the why. Thank you for being the man I hoped you'd be. Tell Victoria I'm proud of who she's becoming. Jim set the letter down, hands unsteady. $50 million. Patricia nodded. Already in escrow waiting for the memorial date. Gregory knew you'd use it right. The weight of it settled across his shoulders. Rebecca would want this to go to people like James Morrison. People who do good work nobody sees. Patricia's smile carried her brother's warmth. Then that's exactly what it should do. Does Victoria know? Jim shook his head. Not yet. I want her to hear it at the memorial, with everyone else. She should know her father believed she could change, even when he knew she'd have to break first. Tyler's school project consumed the Mitchell household for 2 weeks leading up to the memorial. 6th grade hero presentations. 15 minutes each, required visual aids and personal stories. Tyler chose his father, which surprised no one, but the depth of research surprised Jim. His son interviewed Sarah Chen about the early days of Mitchell Technologies, asked Emma about their mother, even called Robert Harrison to ask about the Apex deal. Tyler's poster board filled with photos Jim at factory floors. Jim with employees, Jim and Rebecca on their wedding day, both young and hopeful and unaware of what was coming. The presentation day arrived on a Wednesday, 1 week before the memorial. Jim sat in the back of the auditorium, having taken the morning off despite Sarah's protests about a board meeting. Some things mattered more than quarterly earnings. 6 kids went before Tyler, their heroes ranging from athletes to scientists to parents who'd overcome addiction or illness. Each presentation earnest and sweet touching in the way children's honesty always was. Tyler walked to the front carrying his poster board, note cards clutched in one hand. He set everything up carefully, then looked at his cards, took a breath, and set them aside. His voice carried to the back row without wavering. Hi, I'm Tyler Mitchell. My hero is my dad. I was going to read from my notes, but Dad always says the best words come from the heart, so I'm just going to talk. Jim's throat closed. Tyler's hands gestured as he spoke, passionate and unscripted. My dad isn't famous. Most people don't even know he's rich because he doesn't act like it. He drives us to school in our old Ford truck. He makes pancakes on Saturdays, even though he always burns them a little. He helps with my math homework, even when the new way of doing it confuses him. Laughter rippled through parents and students. The boy's voice steadied, finding the thread he wanted to follow. My mom died when I was really little. I don't remember her much, but Dad talks about her all the time. He has her pictures everywhere. He tells us stories about how they met, how she used to sing to me before I could remember. I think that's what makes him a hero. Not the big stuff, the small stuff. The way he keeps Mom alive for me and Emma. The way he makes sure we know how much she loved us, even though we can't remember all of it ourselves. Jim's vision blurred. He blinked hard, not wanting to miss a moment. Tyler's voice grew stronger. Something bad happened to my dad 10 months ago. A lady was really mean to him in front of lots of people. It was all over the news. I saw the video. I was so mad. I wanted her to get in trouble. I wanted to yell at her. The room had gone completely silent, even the other kids paying attention now. His son looked directly at him across rows of seats in years of loss. But Dad didn't yell. He didn't try to hurt her back. Instead, he helped her. He saved her company and thousands of people's jobs. When I asked him why, he said something I'll never forget. Tyler paused, making sure everyone was listening, then delivered the words with careful precision. He said, Tyler, being strong isn't about hurting people who hurt you. It's about choosing to be kind, even when it's hard. That's what your mom taught me, and that's what I want to teach you. Parents were crying now. Jim saw it in his peripheral vision, but kept his eyes on his son. Tyler's final words came soft but certain. So that's why my dad is my hero, not because he's perfect, because he tries to be good every single day, even when nobody's watching, even when it would be easier to be mean. He chooses kindness. And when I grow up, I want to be just like him. He looked at Jim one more time. I love you, Dad. The auditorium erupted. Jim was already moving, walking down the aisle past the other parents, past teachers and students, straight to his son. He pulled Tyler into an embrace that contained 11 years of trying to be both mother and father, of failing and succeeding, and never quite knowing which was which. Words came out rough. I love you too, buddy. So much. Tyler held on tight. Did I do okay? The answer broke through tears. You did better than okay. You did perfect. Mom would be so proud of you. Tyler's voice came muffled against his father's shoulder. She's watching us somewhere. Jim pulled back, looked into his son's eyes, saw Rebecca's certainty reflected there. Yeah, she's watching, and she's so proud of both of us. March 15th arrived cold and clear. San Francisco, morning light sharp as broken glass. The Apex Systems lobby had been transformed overnight, a small stage erected near the windows where 1 year ago Jim had stood humiliated and dismissed. Now over 1,000 employees filled the space, spilling into hallways gathered in clusters of nervous anticipation. Jim arrived with Emma and Tyler at 9 a.m., 3 hours before the scheduled ceremony. Robert Harrison met them at the entrance, shaking Jim's hand with warmth that still surprised him after months of working together. His voice carried genuine respect. Thank you for coming early. Victoria wanted to see you before everything starts. She waited in a small conference room wearing the same gray sweater and jeans from that morning in Ohio, a deliberate choice that Jim recognized and appreciated. When he entered with his children, Victoria stood hands clasped tight in front of her. Emma spoke first, voice still cautious but no longer hostile. The plaque looks beautiful. The engraver did an amazing job. Victoria's eyes glistened. Thank you for helping me get it right, for giving me the chance to honor your mother properly. Tyler stepped forward, 11 years old and earnest. Are you still being mean to people? The question landed blunt and honest. Victoria knelt down, bringing herself to his eye level, and for once didn't flinch from truth. I'm trying not to be, but I'm human. I make mistakes. The difference now is I apologize when I'm wrong and I try to fix what I break. Tyler studied her face with a child's brutal honesty. Okay, I believe you. Emma touched her brother's shoulder. Tyler, you don't have to. He shook his head. Mom would believe her. Dad said Mom gave people chances even when they didn't deserve them. Mom, Victoria's control finally broke, tears spilling unchecked. Your mother sounds like she was the best person any of us could hope to become. Jim found his voice. She was, and she'd tell you the same thing she told me every time I thought I'd failed beyond redemption. You can't change yesterday, but you can choose who you become tomorrow. The ceremony began at noon. Every chair filled, employees standing 3 deep along the walls, faces Jim recognized from quarterly meetings and factory floor visits. Margaret Torres, with her 2 children. Jennifer Wu, confident in her new role. Tommy Barnes in his security uniform badge, polished pride evident. Robert Harrison with Linda Harrison beside him, hands intertwined, a reconciliation 6 months in the making. Patricia Hartwell took the podium, fierce voice steady despite emotion. 1 year ago today, something happened in this lobby that should never happen anywhere. My niece Victoria made a choice that revealed who she'd become and how far she'd fallen from the values my brother Gregory tried to instill. She paused, letting the weight settle. But that terrible choice led to something unexpected. It led to grace, to mercy, to a man who chose to save 4,500 families despite having every reason to walk away. Patricia's gaze found Jim in the front row. Jim Mitchell showed us what real strength looks like. Not in domination, but in restraint. Not in revenge, but in redemption offered freely to those who don't deserve it. She stepped aside. Victoria approached the podium with careful steps, no notes, no prepared remarks visible. Just a woman standing in the space where she'd committed her greatest sin, ready to name it publicly. Her voice came clear, despite shaking. 1 year ago, I stood in this exact spot and refused to shake a man's hand. I looked at Jim Mitchell and decided in 3 seconds that he wasn't worth my time because he wore jeans instead of a suit. I called security. I had him removed. I humiliated him in front of 50 people. The lobby stayed silent, every eye on her. Victoria's hands gripped the podium. I didn't just hurt one man. I revealed a culture I'd created where people were valued by appearance, by title, by usefulness to me personally. Where pregnant women were told to choose between babies and careers. Where talented people were passed over because they didn't fit my image of excellence. Where truth was buried under NDAs and complaints were ignored. She pulled a letter from her pocket, held it up. My father saw this coming. Before he died, he wrote me a letter warning me not to become the person I became. He also wrote a letter to Jim apologizing in advance for failing to teach me what mattered. Dad gave Jim his first investment 15 years ago, betting on character over credentials. Jim never knew it was my father. Dad wanted him to succeed on his own merit. The revelation rippled through the crowd. Victoria's voice strengthened. I can't undo what I did, but I can promise it ends with me. I can promise that the culture Jim Mitchell and Robert Harrison have built here values every person, respects every voice, and treats dignity as non-negotiable. She stepped back, gestured to the covered plaque. This memorial isn't about celebrating my redemption. It's about remembering the cost of failing to see people. It's about honoring the woman who taught her husband to be better than the worst thing anyone ever did to him. Together, Victoria and Jim pulled the cloth away. Bronze gleamed in morning light, Rebecca's words raised in metal, her name carved for perpetuity. The crowd surged forward, reading many crying understanding, settling like grace. Patricia returned to the podium. There's one more thing, a letter from my brother Gregory to be read today. She recited the words Jim had read weeks earlier about James Morrison, the janitor, about learning to see people, about $50 million waiting to honor those the world overlooks. The number echoed through the lobby, gasps, then spontaneous applause, then something Jim never expected. Someone started chanting Rebecca's name. Then another voice joined, then another, until 1,000 people stood in the Apex Systems lobby shouting his dead wife's name into existence, calling her back from absence through sheer force of gratitude. Rebecca, Rebecca, Rebecca. Jim couldn't stand. Emma held his left hand, Tyler his right, both children crying with him as their mother's name filled the space where she'd never been but would now live forever. Victoria stood apart, witnessing understanding that some legacies outlast breath and bone, that love properly given multiplies across years and miles and human hearts until it becomes something approaching immortal. After the formal ceremony ended, people lined up to shake Jim's hand. 4,500 chances to thank the man who'd saved their livelihoods. He took every hand, looked into every face, heard fragments of stories that together formed a mosaic of ordinary American life preserved. Near the end of the line, Richard Sterling approached. Board chairman, 67 years old, carrying himself with the careful dignity of men who've learned grief's weight. Jim recognized him from board meetings, but they'd never spoken privately for Sterling. Richard's handshake was firm, brief. Mr. Mitchell, could I have a word in private? They moved to a quiet corner. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket, hands that trembled slightly with age or emotion. 10 months ago, someone made an anonymous donation to Apex. $10 million, no name attached, routed through 3 banks. You've been trying to identify the donor. Yes. Jim nodded, memory clicking into place. The money that kept us afloat during the first month of integration. Richard held out the envelope. It was me. I need you to understand why. The confession spilled out in careful sentences. A son named Daniel, 28 years old, brilliant and sensitive, and crushed under workplace stress. A boss who called him weak, who demanded 80-hour weeks, who valued productivity over humanity. Daniel's text messages to his father ignored because Richard was too busy with board meetings and quarterly earnings. The phone call from police, the bridge, the river, the body found 3 days later. Richard's voice stayed level through training or necessity. When I saw what Victoria did to you, I saw Daniel's boss. When I saw her trying to change, I saw the chance Daniel never got. The $10 million was from his life insurance. I wanted it to help people suffering what my son suffered. Jim's throat ached. Thank you for telling me, for trusting me with his story. Richard's eyes held old pain worn smooth. The Rebecca Mitchell Foundation will have a Daniel Sterling Scholarship for young people struggling with workplace mental health. Keep his name alive. Let him help others, even though he couldn't help himself. They stood together in shared understanding of loss that never quite healed, but could be transformed into something approaching purpose. That night, Jim sat on his back porch under Ohio stars. The house behind him held sounds of normal life. Emma on the phone with friends, Tyler playing video games, the dishwasher humming through its cycle. Ordinary and precious, the machinery of family continuing despite absence. He pulled a small wooden box from his jacket pocket, carried it from the memorial ceremony, kept safe for 11 years. 3 letters inside Rebecca's handwriting on each envelope. Open when you feel lost. Open when you succeed. Open when you forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. He'd opened the first 2 years ago, found her wisdom waiting. The third envelope felt heavier tonight, weighted with the day's events and the choice he'd made and the grace he'd offered to a woman who'd treated him like garbage. The seal broke under his finger. Pages unfolded, Rebecca's looping script covering both sides. The letter began, "My darling Jim, if you're reading this, it means you did something I always knew you would. You showed mercy to someone who hurt you." She wrote about forgiveness as strength, about choosing love over bitterness, about the burden of carrying anger and how it poisoned the carrier more than the target. Then a confession that stopped his breath. "My father was a cruel man, Jim. You never knew him. He died before we met. But he was bitter, angry, hurt people because he'd been hurt. No one ever forgave him. No one ever showed him there was another way. He died alone, believing he was unlovable because no one ever loved him past his worst moment." Jim read on, tears blurring the words. "You've just saved someone from that fate. Whoever you forgave, they now have something my father never had: proof that people can change. Proof that grace is real. That's your gift to them. But here's the secret, it's also your gift to yourself. Because every time you choose kindness over bitterness, you become more of the man I fell in love with. The man who saw a girl at a coffee shop and offered his umbrella in the rain. The man who worked 3 jobs so I could finish my nursing degree. The man who held my hand every day for 14 months while cancer took me piece by piece." The next paragraph broke him completely. "You are good, Jim Mitchell. Not perfect, but good. And good is enough. Tell our children I love them. Tell them their mother believed in second chances because their father gave me about 1,000 of them. And Jim, one more thing. Keep living. Keep loving. Keep forgiving. The world needs more people like you. I love you. Forever." Her signature swooped across the bottom, confident and alive, frozen in ink, while her body had turned to ash in memory. Jim sat in darkness, holding his wife's final wisdom, understanding that she'd prepared him for this moment 11 years ago, when she was dying and he was desperate, and neither of them could see past the immediate grief to this future reconciliation. The back door opened. Emma stepped out wrapped in a blanket. "Dad, you okay?" He wiped his eyes. "Come here, sweetheart." She sat beside him, leaned against his shoulder. He showed her the letter, let her read Rebecca's words, watched her face transform with wonder and loss. Her voice came soft. "Mom knew you'd do the right thing." Jim's arm wrapped around his daughter. "She knew me better than I knew myself." Tyler appeared moments later, drawn by some sixth sense that his family was gathering. He climbed into Jim's lap, despite being almost too big for it, read the letter over his sister's shoulder. His question came innocent and profound. "Is Mom watching us right now?" Jim looked at the stars, at his children's faces, at the letter in his hands. "Yeah, buddy, I think she is. And I think she's proud of all of us." They sat together until the spring cold drove them inside, 3 people bound by the absence of a fourth, carrying her forward through choices and grace and the simple determination to be kind when the world made cruelty easier. 18 months after the lobby incident, Apex Systems threw a celebration disguised as a quarterly town hall. The conference center near headquarters filled with employees, families, children running between chairs, while their parents networked and laughed. Jim attended with Sarah Chen, both of them still slightly uncomfortable with the corporate celebration culture but willing to witness success. The numbers spoke clearly. Revenue up 147% from the crisis point, employee satisfaction at 94%, turnover down to 6%, zero discrimination complaints filed in the past year. Robert Harrison took the stage, his ex-wife Linda beside him, visibly pregnant with their second child, a daughter they'd already named Rebecca, with Jim's tearful permission. Robert's voice carried across the crowd. "We're here to celebrate not just financial success, but transformation. 18 months ago, this company was dying. Not from market forces or competition, but from toxic leadership that valued profits over people." He gestured to the screen behind him, displaying metrics and testimonials. "Today we're different. We're better. And it's because one man chose grace over revenge, One woman chose transformation over defending the indefensible, and 4,500 of you chose to believe we could become something worth being proud of. Margaret Torres spoke next, representing the newly formed Employee Advisory Council. 3 years ago, I was told engineering wasn't the right fit for me. Today, I lead a team of 200 engineers, and half of them are women. That's what change looks like when it's real. Jennifer Wu shared quarterly sales figures that made the crowd gasp. We just closed the largest deal in company history, $50 million with a Fortune 100 client who specifically said they chose us because we demonstrate that companies can value people and succeed financially. Ethics isn't a trade-off, it's a competitive advantage. Tommy Barnes received a standing ovation when Robert announced the lobby entrance would be permanently named the Thomas Barnes Welcome Center, honoring 40 years of service and quiet dignity. Near the end, Victoria appeared via video from Atlanta. She'd stayed away deliberately, not wanting her presence to overshadow the celebration of others' work. Her image filled the screen, face bare of makeup, hair pulled back, speaking from what looked like a modest office. I'm in Atlanta helping another tech company fix their culture. I'm not CEO anymore. Not wealthy anymore. Most of my money went to restitution and the foundation. But I'm happier than I've ever been. She paused, choosing words carefully. Every morning I wake up and ask myself, who can I help today? Whose burden can I lighten? Jim Mitchell gave me a chance I didn't deserve. I'm spending the rest of my life paying that forward. Her eyes found the camera, speaking directly to the room. To every Apex employee, thank you for letting me learn how to be human again. Thank you for proving that people can change when they're given the opportunity and choose to take it. The screen went dark. The crowd erupted in applause, not for Victoria specifically, but for the possibility she represented, the hope that redemption was real and available to anyone willing to do the work. Jim slipped out before the formal program ended, walking through the lobby to the bronze plaque that now bore Tommy's name alongside Rebecca's words. He stood there alone for a moment, reading her philosophy carved in metal, feeling the weight of everything that had changed and everything that remained. His phone buzzed. It Tyler texting from soccer practice. Scored a hat trick today. Coach says scouts might come watch next game. Wish you were here, but it's okay. Love you, Dad. Emma's message followed seconds later. Just got accepted to Stanford. Early decision, Dad. I'm going to study social entrepreneurship. I want to build companies that value people like Mom taught you to. Can we celebrate tonight? Jim's chest expanded with something too big for his ribcage to contain. Pride and grief and joy all tangled together, Rebecca's children carrying forward her legacy in ways she'd never lived to see, but had somehow known would happen. He typed back to both, so proud of you both, celebration tonight, pizza and whatever else you want. I love you. The lobby bustled with departing employees, parents collecting children, the ordinary chaos of American life continuing. Someone recognized Jim, waved, mouthed, thank you across the distance. He waved back, then turned toward the exit. Sarah fell into step beside him. You leaving already? Robert wanted to thank you publicly. Jim shook his head. This isn't about me. It never was. It's about 4,500 people getting to keep building their lives. She smiled, knowing him well enough not to argue. Where to next? The question held weight beyond logistics. Where did you go after saving a company, after forgiving the unforgivable, after watching your dead wife's wisdom transform strangers into believers? Jim thought about Tyler's soccer game next week, about Emma's Stanford acceptance, about the quiet house in Columbus that held memories in every corner. Thought about Rebecca's voice in his head, constant and kind, still teaching him how to be better than his worst impulses. The answer came easy. Home. I'm going home. 2 years to the day after the lobby incident, Jim stood at Rebecca's grave for the first time in months. He'd stopped coming so frequently, the daily visits giving way to weekly, then monthly, then only on occasions that demanded her presence be acknowledged. Emma and Tyler waited by the car, giving him space, both understanding that some conversations belonged to their parents alone. The headstone was simple granite, her name and dates in a single line. She taught us to be kind. Jim knelt, brushed leaves from the base, spoke to stone and memory and whatever came after. Hey, babe, 2 years since the handshake, since everything changed. The cemetery stretched quiet around him, spring grass and old trees, and the patient silence of the dead. His voice stayed low, intimate. The foundation has your name now. 15 million grown to 40 through investments. We've helped 500 families dealing with cancer and job loss simultaneously. Given 2,000 scholarships to working-class entrepreneurs. Daniel Sterling's mental health program served 10,000 employees across 20 companies. A bird sang somewhere close, indifferent to human grief and grace. Jim's hand rested on the stone cold and permanent. Emma got into Stanford. Your daughter is going to change the world, Rebecca. She's got your heart and your brain, and that thing you had where you could see the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Tears came easy now, familiar friends. Tyler's a soccer star, talks about you all the time. Tells his friends his mom taught his dad to be a hero. I don't know where he got that, but I let him believe it because it keeps you alive for him. The confession came harder. I've started dating someone. Her name is Helen Rodriguez. She was the organizational psychologist who led the Apex Culture audit. She's kind like you. Reminds me that feeling joy doesn't mean forgetting grief. Guilt and hope warred in his chest. I think you'd like her. She leads with compassion. She sees people the way you did. And she understands that she's not replacing you. Nobody could replace you. She's willing to walk forward with someone who's carrying you with him. The stone offered no absolution or permission, just patient witness to words that needed speaking. Jim stood, brushed dirt from his knees. Victoria Hartwell is a corporate culture consultant now, full-time, works with 30 companies, donates every penny to charity, lives in a studio apartment, drives a used Honda. She's doing the work, Rebecca, really doing it. I think you'd be proud of her. I think you'd be proud of me for giving her the chance. The bird's song continued simple and perfect. His final words came soft. I kept my promise, helped people who needed it, forgave when it was hard, taught the kids about grace. I hope I'm making you proud. Emma's voice carried across the cemetery. Dad, we should probably go. Tyler has his game in an hour. Jim touched the stone one last time. I love you. I'll always love you. Thank you for everything you taught me. Thank you for still teaching me. He walked back to his children, to his living family, to the future that stretched out bright and uncertain. Emma took his left hand, Tyler his right. Three people bound together by love that survived death and time and every effort to diminish it. Tyler looked up, earnest and young. Was Mom happy about everything? Jim looked back at the grave, at the stone marking where her body rested, while her spirit lived on in plaques and foundations and children and choices. Yeah, buddy, I think she's very happy. They drove to the soccer field together, windows down, spring air rushing through the truck, Tyler chattering about plays and strategies, while Emma scrolled her phone and Jim navigated Columbus streets that had witnessed his entire adult life. The scoreboard showed Tyler's team up 3-1. Jim settled into the bleachers, Emma beside him, with her camera ready. Normal and precious, the ordinary magic of American suburban life, continuing, despite loss and pain, in the long shadow of grief. Tyler scored twice more, each goal punctuated by a point toward his father, the gesture they'd shared for years. Jim pointed back the signal, meaning everything it had always meant. I see you. I'm proud of you. We're in this together. The game ended. Tyler's team won. The crowd dispersed toward parking lots and dinner plans and homework and television and all the small machinery of existence. Jim's phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. 2 years today. I want you to know I think of that lobby every single day. It reminds me who I was and who I'm trying to become. Thank you for believing I could be better. Thank you for everything. He typed back, simple and true. Keep doing the work. That's all any of us can do. Tyler ran over, muddy and glowing. Did you see the second goal? Did you see the fake? Jim pulled his son close, smelled sweat and grass and youth. I saw it, buddy. It was perfect. You're getting really good. Tyler's grin could have powered cities. I practice every day, like Mom, practice being a nurse. Emma says Mom believed practice makes you who you are, not just what you do. Emma joined them, slipping her phone into her pocket. That's exactly what Mom believed. They walked to the truck together, Tyler recounting plays, Emma laughing at his enthusiasm, Jim soaking in the moment like a man who understood how quickly moments could evaporate. At-home pizza boxes covered the kitchen table. Tyler's homework spread across the living room floor. Emma's college acceptance letter hung on the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like an Ohio State flag. Rebecca's foot watched from the mantel, smiling over the chaos she'd helped create and would never see resolved. Jim looked around his home, this ordinary space transformed by love and loss and the simple determination to keep going when stopping seemed easier. Thought about Victoria in her studio apartment, Robert with his reunited family, Margaret leading her engineering team, Jennifer closing impossible deals, Tommy enjoying retirement with his grandchildren. Thought about 4,500 families eating dinner tonight because one man chose grace over revenge, because one woman chose transformation over defending the indefensible, because ordinary people believed extraordinary change was possible. Rebecca's words carved in bronze, living on past breath and bone. Be kind today. You never know whose worst day you're walking into. The philosophy had saved a company, redeemed a woman, taught his children what strength really meant. It would outlast him, outlast his children, outlast everyone who'd witnessed the transformation it sparked. Love properly given never really died. It just changed shape, multiplied across hearts and years and human connections until it became something approaching eternal. Jim Mitchell looked at his children, at his home, at the life he'd built from grief and grace, and understood with absolute clarity that Rebecca had been right about everything that mattered. Be kind, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The rest would follow.